Hey y'all, it's Trina, and today I am reviewing the 9 books that I read in the month of October. Everything I read in October are books I actually listened to via their audiobooks, so I will put up a rating for the story, the writing, and the characters like itself, like just the overall book rating, and then I'll put a separate rating for the audiobook, which basically just encompasses the narration quality and whether or not I thought that the narrator read well, had good voices for the different characters, and just brought, you know, depth and emotion to the story. First, I want to talk about an entire trilogy that I read because, like I've been doing this year, I just tend to pick up older series and then binge read the whole things. But that is the Ruby Red or the Precious Stones trilogy by Kerstin Gier. These were originally published in Germany, so these are translated works. Book 1 is Ruby Red, book 2 is Sapphire Blue, and the third book is Emerald Green. And these are young adult books about time travel. The main character is in a family of time travelers, so she knows about these travelers, but only certain people can do it. There's only so many of them, and it's like prophesied that her older cousin is supposed to be the one among her family that is the next and the last time traveler. So her cousin has had all this training, and then one day the main character finds out that it's actually her who is the time traveler, and she's kind of thrown into it without much preparation or training. Part of the storyline is tracking down 2 of the time travelers that basically ran away in time because they didn't want to be part of this secret society group of travelers anymore. I think this has a lot of parallels with the Passenger duology by Alexandra Bracken, and this also kind of reminded me of the Conspiracy of Us trilogy by Maggie Hall, I think. I did enjoy these. I did feel invested in them. I thought they were good adventures, good with the way that they sort of played with time travel, but at the end of each book I did always end up thinking, wow, that could have and should have had a bigger punch, like a bigger twist or some kind of shock value or just a bit of a stronger plot. Even the ending of the series, in all, I was kind of like, that's it, it's over? Like, oh, that just kind of seemed like it ended in the middle of a scene to me. And that's kind of how I felt with all 3 endings. Like, it didn't give me much to want to carry on other than the fact that I had all 3 readily available to me and they were interesting. So these aren't my favorites, but I do think you would like them if you like time travel, secret societies, the Passenger duology, or the Conspiracy of Us trilogy. Also at 3 stars is To Be Honest by Maggie and Martin. Maggie is a booktuber. I've known of her channel for a long time, and I think this is her 2nd book that she has published. This one is Own Voices, Fat, and Anxiety Rep. I think their own voices. But this is a YA contemporary, there is a romance in it, and it is about a main character who is plus size, and she's living with her mother who was on a reality TV weight loss show, and so her mom is like really into like fitspiration, and she ends up fat shaming her daughter a lot, so the main character is dealing with that. Now, in terms of the story itself, this was kind of just run-of-the-mill contemporary romance in my opinion, but we do need books that are stories that we've heard over and over that do star characters that are underrepresented. So this one is fat representation. I think it was great in terms of that. I do think that this is a story that a lot of people are going to see themselves in, because a lot of people who are overweight have felt weight shaming, especially from parents or family members. Just beware that it could be pretty triggering because of the mother's behaviors and attitudes towards it. Besides that though, the main character's weight had nothing to do with the rest of the story, specifically with the romance. I don't think her weight ever came up with the romance, or, you know, like when she is thinking about herself and her body image, she doesn't really have her own insecurities about it. It's really just, I wish my mom would stop because she's wrong and there's nothing wrong with me. I really liked that about it, and I would definitely recommend this if you are looking for good fat rep. At 4 stars, I read Given to the Earth by Mindy McGinnis, which is the 2nd book in her Given to the Sea duology. This is a YA fantasy, and I think all of Mindy McGinnis's books have a lot of crossover appeal for young adults and adults, but this is like a dark and gritty world, and the first book dealt a lot with rape culture in a fantasy world. That's what I felt like, at least, because the story is about this one character is destined to be a sacrifice into the sea so that the sea won't like flood the land and the kingdoms all die, but she can't be a sacrifice until she has a kid, and so she hasn't had a kid, and so, you know, some creeps in that world want to kind of force her to have a kid. I didn't always love that about it, but I did think that it was trying to combat that stuff and show it as bad. So, you know, beware that that's there in case that is one of your personal like lines that you can't read about. I did think it was a good ending to the series. It was very brutal, but I mean, I can't be surprised by that because it's Mindy McGinnis and that's how she writes her books. She does something that I feel like I wish I saw more of in fantasy books, and that is she's made words in the language and like the phrases and things that people say are totally unique to this world. Like, this is a world where they fear the ocean, and so like their curses and stuff have to do with words about water. Like, one of their curses is tides. Tides, this is bad, you know. And I really like that when books have their own unique phrases to that world. I think it's a nice little extra detail. I read Lethal White by Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling. This is the 4th book now in her Cormoran Strike series, and we're just following a detective. Like, these are detective crime novels. They are an adult series. This series can get pretty gory and gritty and dark, and each book does follow a new and different mystery, although there are threads of these two main characters' personal lives and like relationship drama that are found all throughout the series. And I do think that they drag a little bit. I don't think everything is completely essential. I do like just the way that she writes the mysteries and solving them, and that we're right there with Cormoran. So if you like detective novels, I definitely think these are ones worth checking out. I also read Sadie by Courtney Summers. This is a YA book about girls that have gone missing. One of them was found dead, and then her older sister is Sadie, who has now disappeared from her small town because she is following the person that killed her sister, and she has embarked on this journey of revenge. This story is told in 2 different ways. First, you follow Sadie's point of view, and then the second part of the story is actually the print version of a podcast about this town and their 2 missing girls. They don't know what's happened to Sadie. They don't know why she has run away, what she is doing, and so you're listening to them like wonder about things, and then you get Sadie's, you know, point of view and like the details on it. This audiobook has a full cast, and like the podcast sections are done just like a podcast would be. Like, you come on and it says, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and this is episode 4 of The Girls. This podcast is brought to you by Macmillan Publishers." You know, like, it's got the spot for sponsors, it's got intro music. Every single character that is interviewed is voiced by a different voice actor. There is background noise in some of the scenes, like if they're being interviewed at a diner or something. It's perfection in terms of an audiobook, and the sections that are just Sadie's point of view are narrated by Rebecca Soler, who is one of my brand new favorite audiobook narrators. I just think she does just a good job. I love her voice. I could listen to her all the time. She brings a lot of emotion to it. I loved it. If you loved Serial or Making a Murderer, I think you're going to really enjoy the way that this story is told because of that podcast style, investigating true crimes, presenting evidence, showing the things that were investigated poorly, and then I don't know, I gave it 4 stars, but the more I talk about it, I kind of want to give it 5 stars. The reason I gave it 4 stars initially, though, was because it ends in a way that I was like, I want to know more. And I mean, that's the point, right? Like, if you did listen to the first season of Serial, or if you did watch the first season of Making a Murderer, they left you wanting more, wanting to know. And I think that's the point, because it's supposed to mirror real life and real cases where we don't always know all the answers. So I don't know if I should hold that against it anymore. I don't know. I just really, really loved it for the audiobook, and I'm having trouble knowing if I don't think I would have liked it as much if I had read the print version. So like, audiobook, more than 5 stars. One of the best I've ever listened to. I had 2 5-star rated books in October, and the first of those was Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This is YA sci-fi about superheroes. Basically, in the past, people started getting superpowers, and the people that did not have powers would usually turn to these heroes to save them, to put things right. And so basically these superheroes came into power in this society. So we're following one of the main characters who is part of this league of superheroes, and then we're following another main character who is part of the anarchists, where they think that the people, the normal people without powers, have become way too dependent on them, and so they don't stand up and do the right thing anymore. And so that character, the anarchist, actually joins the Renegades, the League of Superpowers, to like infiltrate into their ranks and learn private information. She's basically a spy, and she's going to give that back to her team of anarchists, but then her anarchists start to kind of turn on her, and she realizes maybe she misunderstood some stuff. She makes some friends in there. It's like the true enemies to friends and possibly someday lovers trope, and I was really there for that. I really enjoyed it. Like, she has to work with her enemies, and then she becomes torn on who she's going to be more loyal to. But besides that, like, the powers were fun, and there are powers that aren't the typical. Like, one of the characters, I think it is so cool. His ability is he can draw things and then pull them out of the drawing and make them real. I really enjoyed it, and I loved the character so much, and I'm really hyped for the second book. What I would consider my favorite book was Furyborn by Legrand. This is high fantasy, and I think it's probably technically young adult because it seems like it's blurbed by a lot of YA authors, but it had a very adult feel to me. I didn't know very much about this book going in because I had read part of the Goodreads synopsis and it lost me, and so I just kind of like forgot about this book, forgot about whatever I had read about it, and then I started seeing a lot of people giving it 5 stars whose reviews I generally, you know, tend to lean towards, and so I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And the only thing that I ended up really knowing about it is that there was this prophecy that 2 queens will rise and basically make everything right with the world. I loved both of these characters. I loved their stories. I loved the fact that one of the characters has to undergo different trials, and part of the trials were like based on her fashion that she was wearing. Like, she would dress to, you know, make the people like really in awe of her, and so it gave me some Hunger Games vibes. I'm finding that trials or competition are buzzwords that will really draw me to books lately, so I really liked that part of it. I did think that that storyline was a bit more interesting to me, but then the other character's storyline got much more interesting towards the end. The way that they intertwined together was very interesting. I feel like one of the reasons I liked this so much is because I had recently read some fantasy novels that were kind of just like, eh, to me, and this one was like, this is what I want. That's the type of world, the type of powers, the type of fantasy, the type of characters that I have been looking for. And so like this kind of like set a new standard for me in fantasy, and I just have really enjoyed it. So those are the 9 books that I read in the month of October. Let me know what you guys have been reading, what your favorite read of October was. Hopefully this is going to be up in a timely manner and you will still remember what your favorite book of October was. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you in the comments. Bye!